It's almost as if it were an occupational hazard. You're a politician, you're fair game for hired assassins. Why is Philippine politics like this? Why does our culture tolerate political assassinations? Good evening, I'm Pia Hontiveros. Welcome to your weekly political appointment fix, Politics as Usual. Our guests tonight, the President of the Union of Local Authorities of the Philippines, Quirino Governor Dax Cua. Dax's father was a longtime congressman of their province. Gideon Javier, son of Evelio Javier, an Antiqueño politician governor whose assassination a few days after the 1986 snap elections helped galvanize the forces that would eventually become victorious at EDSA. And Dr. Imelda Dela of the Ateneo de Manila University School of Government, who's now based in Canberra, Australia. Dr. Dela was one of the 4 authors of a study on election-related violence in the Philippines. Well, let's begin with Governor Cua, who's joining us via Zoom. Governor Cua, thank you very much for giving us some time tonight. Are you there? Are you there, Governor? Good evening. Thank you very much again for being with us. Well, Governor Cua, let's begin with this ULAP stand on political assassinations. You did condemn this, well, this latest, most brazen attack and an assassination of Roel Digamo, governor of Negros Oriental. What else has ULAP said about this?
Yes, Pia. So we collectively and jointly and solidarily condemn the attack against Roel Legamo, as well as the 3 other local officials that happened just nearly a few days before that. We also express our sympathies to the family of those who were killed. And of course, we offer our support to collaborate with the local authorities to bring to justice the perpetrators of this crime.
What are your thoughts, Governor Cua, yours and the rest of ULAP, on the way the Philippine National Police and the armed forces has handled this situation? Specifically, let's begin with what is happening in Negros Oriental. At the same time, how the investigation is being handled.
Well, yeah, we had a meeting last week, with the top brass of the PNP, which was likewise attended by Secretary Avalos of the DILG. And we were sure that justice will be dispensed, and that they are working day and night to find those responsible for this crime. And we will also collaborate more with them, as I think this needs more collaboration from other national agencies, in order to prevent these things from happening again in other places of the country.
Does the assassination of Governor Digamo and that of Vice Mayor Romel Alameda of Apari, Cagayan, and the attempts on the lives of Lanao Sur Governor Bombit Adyong and Mayor Otto Montawal of Dato Montawal, Maguindanao, does that worry the rest of you, the rest of local government officials, whether you are governors or mayors or vice governors or vice mayors? Governor Cua, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Sorry about that.
Yes. Oh, I was
Can you
asking.
repeat that?
Yes, I was asking if the assassination of Governor Digamo and that of Vice Mayor Romel Alameda of Apari, Cagayan, and the attempts on the lives of 2 Mindanao, well, 1 governor and 1 mayor, does that worry the rest of you?
Definitely, yeah, no, a lot of our colleagues are worried. Of course, not all. Some are just being more careful than others. But yes, a lot of our colleagues in government are worried about the attacks recently. It comes at a time when we don't expect these violent acts. Given that almost 1 year na tayo nakalipas ng eleksyon at usually ganitong panahon, unification na ng ating bayan ay natupag natin lahat. So medyo yung pagkasunod-sunod niya alarms us. And for the others, like myself and a few other colleagues who aren't necessarily as concerned, we cannot avoid na yung aming mga loved ones and relatives, sila po yung nag-aalala for us in this situation. So yes, we're talking about security, we're talking about how to protect ourselves from these kinds of possible attacks.
Governor Kua, what do you think explains why we seem to, well, how do we say, hindi naman tolerate, no? But para bang sanay na sanay tayo sa mga political assassinations. This happens every few months, every few years. Sometimes there's very big, an assassination of a very big political figure. Sometimes it's a mayor, sometimes it's a governor, sometimes it's a national figure. Bakit ba parang sanay na tayo sa ganoon?
Well, actually, Pia, that's part of our stand here in Tulap na baguhin nga at hindi tayo dapat mag-tolerate ng ganito. Hindi lang dahil yung gobyerno po yung inatake, but in general, no, the safety of each Filipino and the life of each Filipino is really sacred and important. And kailangan talaga nating manindigan together as one people to reject these kinds of acts and this kind of violence. Yung pong kay Ligamo, which showed brazen and utter lack of respect for life of those who were just there seeking assistance from their government. Talagang nakakapagdamdamin yung pangyayari po.
Governor Kua, do you and the rest of ULAP think that it is time for real, genuine institutional and policy reforms so that we, para hindi na tayo nasasanay na lang sa mga political assassinations? Is there something that we can do as a country? Is there something that Congress can do? Is there something that governors can do para matapos na ito?
But siguro it takes all of us to do our part. No? For those in government, tulad po namin, of course, according to the code that we swore to follow. For those someone who are charged to protect us and protect the people who got special training in combat to actually live up to their oath and use their talents to safeguard the security of people instead of using that against the people. And for those who are in a position to dispense justice, of course, to do it diligently and according to the rule of the laws that should prevail in the land. So each of us has a role to play, and even our ordinary kababayans to be vigilant and to be part of the solution and not part of the problem, I guess.
Governor Dax Kua, President of the Union of Local Authorities of the Philippines, Quirino Governor Dax Kua, thank you very much for joining us this evening. We'll be back after a quick break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. This is Politics as Usual. Joining us now is Gideon Javier, son of the late Antigua Governor Evelio Javier. Good evening, Gideon. Thank you very much for being with us. We're going to begin, if you don't mind, with the photographs that you sent us earlier. Many, if not most of them, I've never seen them before. And I wanted the rest of the viewers, the audience, to see it. So we're going to show it now. And then I wanted you to describe very briefly lang what are in those pictures. Can you tell us what this one is? Obviously, your dad is there in the middle of the table, and your mom is beside him, right?
Yes, this is in our. We had a mango tree and my father used to sit underneath it with my mom, myself, that's me in the foreground, and our guests. And that's how we entertain people. Whether it was people asking for help or guests from abroad, we'd all just sit down in front of that table.
Yeah. What year was that?
This is probably 1974, 1975.
Okay. But you did leave for the US eventually, right?
Yes, we left when I was 10 in 1980.
Okay. Because your dad was afraid of what would happen? Ganun ba?
I think by 1980, he was on his third or fourth assassination attempt already.
Okay.
And he wanted to move his family out of the Philippines. And then he came back 3 years later.
All right. Okay. The next photograph that we're going to show, this one. Talk to us about this. Obviously, this is in the Ateneo de Manila campus.
Yes. This is my father bringing me to work. He was teaching religion in the Ateneo High School in 1971. This was the year that he decided to run for office.
He graduated college in 1968. Why religion, by the way?
That's a good question. Both of my parents were religion teachers, and I never got to ask why.
Okay. All right. Next. And of course, that's you. Yeah, like you said, he brought you to work that day. Okay. Next photograph. This is your father as a little boy, no?
The one on the leftmost is my father, and those are his parents. This was in Hamtic Antique, probably around 1948 or 49.
And of course, your father's brother is Ezequiel or X. I'm very familiar with him. I covered him in the House of Representatives. He ran and was congressman for a very long time, right? And also governor.
Yes, he's the little guy on the right.
The little guy on the right. Okay. Next photograph.
This is my father's first communion.
Okay, and the next one. I'm curious about the captions, huh? Who said that my pants are still dirty? There's another photograph about him talking about his dirty trousers. What was that about?
These three I found in a box. These were him climbing the highest peak in Panay. He was the first guy, along with his group, to climb it. And it was a 7-day expedition. They had to wash their own clothes. They had to forage for food. And so you'll see a bunch of these. Him in a sleeping bag, him drinking coffee. If you go down, there's more of him in chinelas because I think he broke his boots as well.
Okay. He was in his mid-40s when he was killed, right? How old were you when your father was killed? And like we said, you were in the U.S. at the time, right? How old
I
were
was
you?
16.
16. Okay.
I was in first year of high school.
All right. Bring us back to that day when your father was killed and you heard the news.
I was actually studying for a biology test. It was Sunday night. And my uncle called and asked to speak to my mother. I was going to pick up the phone. And then she went into the bathroom with the phone and came out 15 minutes later to tell us that he'd been shot by a soldier.
You never really get over it, right, Gideon?
You never get over these things. You really never get over someone randomly and violently killing someone who really was not in a fight.
Okay. Arturo Pacificador was acquitted in 2004 after years of, going scot-free, no? But he
Yes.
did die in 2015. Did you ever forgive him?
Forgiveness normally requires contrition. The guy never ever admitted to doing it. All his people got convicted, and then he continued on his merry way to cause heaven knows what in Antique.
Okay. Today, in the last 2.5 weeks, we've had two political assassinations as you already know, and just to remind the viewers, the governor of Negros Oriental, Ruel Digamo, the vice mayor of Aparica, Gayan, and there were attempts on the lives of one, a Governor Bombit Adyong, and another, a mayor in another province in Mindanao. What are your thoughts when you hear of these? Of course, there were many other assassinations or attempts on the lives of other politicians over the years. What are your thoughts when you hear of news like this?
We are seeing an extraordinary increase in the funds available to local governments. We're seeing a hyper concentration of families in political positions. When you have a lot of family members fighting over a limited number of positions, which control increasingly large numbers of funds, this is bound to happen.
Hyper concentration of families in political positions. You're talking about political dynasties, but we all know that we have a provision in the 1987 Constitution, and there's never been a law that will disallow political dynasties. Earlier, I had asked Governor Kua, now, what kind of institutional and policy reforms can we look at if we want to put an end to political assassinations? Because, and like I said in the introduction of the show, para bang sanay na tayo. No? It's like we're so used to this. It's like an occupational hazard for politicians in this country. What can we do to put an end to this?
First thing you have to do is take the money out of politics. You have to take the money out of local governments. You have to take the money out of procurement deals. You have to stop people from having the power to make ipit and diligencia in the name of regulation. Every time you take away a source of funds to be fought over, you take away the cost of potential violence.
So apart from those thoughts on taking the money away, to remove that potential for political violence, when you think about politics here in this country, we're so passionate. Filipinos are so passionate about politics, about elections. It's practically a pastime for us, but meron talagang punto na yung magpapatayin talaga. Does that still surprise you, or is that something that you've gotten used to?
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised simply because, well, once in a while I come across the backstory to why people get killed in office. And it normally boils down to people fighting over control over some source of funds or something. I don't know the particulars of the Digamo case, but it's almost always someone is shot because two guys are making kitgitan over a racket or a particularly rich source of, or a particularly rich province or something of the nature. And it's really, on one hand, it's economic, two, it's clan honor and the need for control over a particular territory because of their family pride. And really, we just have to make politics more like having the parent-teachers association or something. We really have to take the element of winner-take-all and zero-sum gaming out of politics in order for us to have a more peaceful society in general.
Do you find it funny that, we like to say Filipinos love democracy, and yet we seem to have very low tolerance for democracy because, instead of talking things out, magpatay na lang tayo, parang ganon?
The problem is we don't adhere to rules of debate. We don't adhere to basic laws. We cite the law when it suits us. We ignore it when it doesn't suit us. We create workarounds. So it leads to patayan. If we follow the laws, if we follow the spirit of no political dynasties, if we stop treating all these allocations as sources of slush funds, it would really help a great deal to bring peace to our political process.
Gideon Javier, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Maraming salamat sa'yo.
You're welcome. Thank you.
More from one more guest when we return. This is Politics as Usual. Be right back. You're still on Politics as Usual. Our third guest, Dr. Imelda Dainla of the Ateneo School of Government, joining us live via Zoom from Canberra, Australia. Dr. Dainla, magandang gabi po sa inyo. Well, let's begin with this, ma'am. You among, together with three others, came up with a study in some years ago about key characteristics of election-related violence in the Philippines. And I wanted to ask you, what would you say is the most important finding that has bearing on what is happening today? Because in the last 2.5 weeks, we had 2 assassinations and 2 attempts on the lives of 2 other politicians.
I think one of the key findings of our research that we actually did last year, we did a study from 2013 to 2019 elections, is that really there is an increasing or uptake of election-related violence in the Philippines. And we saw that most of these incidents resulted to fatalities, meaning over 50% of these incidents actually resulted to in deaths. And we see that in the recent killings. Also, we see that election-related violence doesn't stop within after the elections. In fact, it actually continues, and we have seen that trend in 2019 elections, where we started to see these trends of elected incumbents being killed by assassins, by unidentified gunmen. Another key finding is that most of the perpetrators are actually unidentified. So we can see that in this video that the perpetrators were actually masked, riding in tandems and the likes.
Ma'am, you also found that the more dynastic a province is, the more it is likely, and I quote your study, likely to exhibit a higher number of election-related violence incidents.
We see that, although we have not really correlated that, but we see the tendency of provinces, which we call election hotspots. These are mostly provinces with thick political dynasties. Kumbaga matataba yung mga dynasties dyan. But we also saw that there are also different other factors that we need to see. That includes the presence of private armed groups, of course, illicit guns or loose firearms that are proliferating. We have seen that really in those election hotspots. And of course, there are also historical animosities among the families that are vying for political power.
Your study, ma'am, like you said, was covered the 2013 to 2019 period. But would you say that your study does apply to years or decades before that? Just a while ago, I was speaking to Gideon Javier, whose father was killed in 1986, Evelio Javier. And would you say that this also applies to present day?
Yes, we saw that in our review of the historical incidents, especially during the Marcos years. Those were actually one of the most deadliest periods in terms of election-related violence. And the trend continues, actually. And we see that the incentive structure actually has become even more motivating these politicians to really get into violent contests. So there is a lot of incentives and motivations for them. It's actually elections is considered as a zero-sum game for the participants in the election process.
Zero-sum game, just as Gideon Javier was saying just a while ago. You did in that study propose institutional and policy reforms, but I wanted to ask you this, ma'am, because the question really is, why are we like this as a people? We're supposed to be very hospitable, very gentle as a people, and yet this passion, this parang fanaticism about politics and elections, is parang takes a life of its own. Parang pwedeng dumating or humantong sa patayan ng dahil lang sa politika. So What explains this? No, what in our culture as a people explains this?
I would personally say that there is a culture already of impunity in the Philippines because we can see, no, that this violence are not addressed in a more systematic and institutionalized way. Less people are condemning this violence. In fact, I would say that kailangan talaga nating magalit na, but I don't see that many people are getting outraged by these incidents. And so nakakalungkot. And I would say that it has really become an institutional feature of our electoral system to see this recurring. And in fact, in previous studies, the Philippines has been touted as the most violent, no, in Asia in terms of election-related violence. So this is really a very serious matter, and unfortunately, not many people are taking this seriously.
Hindi na tayo nagagalit, nasasanay na lang tayo. Para bang it is something to expect. Every time elections are near, o hotspots, election-related violence, nasanay na lang tayo, ma'am, right?
Yes.
Okay. I wish we had more time, pero ubus na talaga. But if you have, I have 10 seconds for you, ma'am, for final words.
I hope that we should really take election-related violence as a very serious affront to our electoral democracy. I hope that our authorities, our political leaders, and our community should really take, urgent steps, to address this, either through policies or approaches, law enforcement approach, and to ensure, that this problem doesn't escalate to the next level.
Dr. Imelda Dainla, thank you very much, ma'am, for joining us tonight. We've been told before, don't talk politics at the dinner table or the family reunion or in Viber groups and risk warfare, digital or otherwise. But we can talk about it here at this table on this show, your weekly political appointment fix, politics as usual. I'm Pia Hontiveros. See you back here next Wednesday, 8 p.m.